Good evening from the farmer's garden. I'm one of the farmers and I'm out in the chicken pen right now. So I came out to feed this evening and discovered that we have a sick chicken. So this seemed like a good time for me to show you kind of our setup, what we do with sick birds. If you have chickens for very long, there's a good chance that you will run into at least one or two minor problems. And so these are just some ideas, things that we do when we have sick chickens. Many of the vets in this area don't care to see chickens. They just don't. They could, but they're probably not going to. So you're going to have to kind of figure out your own way to treat chickens. Most of the time, they're very hardy. Chickens are tough little dudes. So most of the time, whatever is bothering them is not going to be horrible. You'll be able to fix it, or they'll die. They're either healthy or dead. Very, very few times will they have just like a prolonged sickness that would need all sorts of treatment. So I'm going to show you what's up with my chicken and kind of some things that we keep around to keep handy in case we have a situation like this come up. And that'll just give you some ideas for what to do if you have any trouble with your birds. All right, so this young lady is one of our crossbred hens from last year. I do not know if she is laying yet. We had several that got moved in with the rest of the flock before they started laying, so we've kind of lost track of who's doing what. Normally when I see a chicken standing like this, I will immediately assume that they're what's called egg bound, which means that the egg is too big to pass through. If I have a bird that is egg bound, a lot of times what I do is kind of grab them by their feet and turn them upside down. I don't really want to do that to her right now because I don't think that's her situation. I think this hen has become kind of low man on the totem pole and is being pecked at. You can see this eye. They've really done a number on it. So for whatever reason, she found herself the center of a hen party in all the worst ways. This eye is a little inflamed as well, and they've been pecking at it. So I'm trying not to stress her more than I have to. So I'm not turning her upside down. I don't think egg bound is our problem here. But what I've done is I've got her in one of our breeder cages. These are actually rabbit hutches, like what people who show rabbits or keep meat rabbits, this is kind of what they use for those rabbits. I got these off of Craigslist. I got two of them. I think they were $10 each. That was probably 12 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago. You can't find them for $10 each anymore. But something like this is really handy to have for sick birds. Now normally you would probably want it better than just like tied to the ceiling of a pen. In an ideal world I would have a wooden frame that these would fit in and all those things, but this works. She has water, she has food, and she's away from the others so they can't peck at her. That's the main thing that I'm going for with this one. Again, this one is a situation, I think they just started pecking at her. I don't think there's a real situation here as far as her being sick, having anything that would transfer to the other birds, that sort of thing. So she is inside the breeder pen right now, but separate in this cage. Right after we moved, I had a chicken that got sick, I think from the dust in their new pen, and she would just sit and like, and it was pitiful, and you could hear her from far away. And just to make sure that it wasn't some sort of respiratory something that would share, I put her in a cage and then moved her away from the other birds. So if you think it might be something that would spread, it's best to move them away from the other birds. And she stayed by herself for a few days. She was still wheezing, but she started eating and drinking again. Now she's back in with the flock, and I can't even tell which one she was. So she's fine again. Again, if they're egg bound, if they're standing like in a hunched position and they don't really run from you, they don't really move, you can grab them by the legs and sort of turn them upside down. And I like bounce them a couple times. It sounds awful. And what that does is it kind of lets their body adjust how that egg is inside of there, and then maybe it'll come on out. Because they can die from being egg bound. The eggs and the poop all come from the same exit. And so if they don't let the egg out, the poop can't get out either, and it gets bad. So that's one that you'll want to treat pretty quickly. If you have an injury, this is what I recommend. I wish I could get like a sponsor with these guys. This stuff is great for injuries. Even our rooster, y'all hear me talk about how sweet he is. He's a nice rooster, all those things. Because he's so sweet, the hens will kind of gang up on him as well. And so he'll get, they'll pluck at him until sometimes he bleeds even. And so we just use this. We just catch them, and it's like a fine powder, and you just dust it on there. We had a dog get in a fight and nearly have his ear ripped off. And it was one of those deals where he got in a fight late at night. We go out with porch lights and flashlights, and we look him over, and we're like, okay, he's going to be okay. Then we discovered like 12 hours later that he should have had stitches. Well, by then there's not as much that they can do. I mean, they could have, but it would have been more expensive, and we were broke and all those things. Anyways, this stuff, he passed away several years later, but it was not at all from the ear. His ear healed up perfectly. Even Spunk got hurt last year. He ran into something, cut his leg severely, ended up at an emergency vet, spent all sorts of money. We took him back to our vet for a follow-up, and I just mentioned that we use that stuff, and he's like, oh yeah, that would have healed this. You didn't have to pay for stitches. That stuff would have worked. So keep that on hand for your chickens, but also for your other animals. It's great. So like I say, chickens, they're either healthy, they're dead, or it's going to be something simple that you can do. You usually don't need a vet involved. Keep a place that you can separate them and keep them by themselves. Keep an extra feeder or water or that sort of thing, because they're going to need to eat and drink while they're away. Keep that winter dust, and just kind of watch them. Most of the time, you're going to be able to treat them yourself, and they're going to be fine. So there's our simple setup. That's what we do if we have anybody sick or injured. This is also the same crate that I use for chicks in the spring. So it's multi-purpose, and that's what I got. Thanks for stopping by the farm this evening. Hope you enjoyed your visit. Y'all be sure and come back when you can stay longer.